Hey everyone, welcome to Kingdom Builder. I'm Jay Heilman. Thank you so much for joining us today. Greatly appreciated. So, if you've listened to Kingdom Builder on the podcast or watched Kingdom Builder TV on YouTube, you'll notice that there's a song that's playing at the beginning of all of our podcast episodes. And it was a song called Healer. And for a long time, we had that song in our intro. And joining me today is the artist who sings that song. We've actually changed it to his newest song, Ball and Chain. But I'm so excited to have Jason Fowler joining us today. Jason, how are you doing today, man?
Man, I'm grateful and blessed. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, man. It's good to finally have you back on here. And we were talking about, it's crazy. It's been you and I talk on a normal basis through text and on the phone, but we haven't done an interview since like 2016, 2017. So it's been quite a while.
It's been a minute. It's been a minute.
So Jason, your last full record, I Fallen, came out back in 2016, and in the last 7 years, you released a slew of awesome singles, including Ball and Chain earlier this year, and you have a new one coming out on April 19th called Wasted Time. And I might add, Ball and Chain is actually the video intro for Kingdom Builder TV and in the podcast. And it's such great songs. I got a chance to listen to Wasted Time. And why don't you tell us about these two new singles that you've released this year?
Ball and Chain is it's basically a song about not letting people or places or things or the world hold you down, because this isn't our kingdom. Our kingdom is in the heavenly realms. And for me, Ball and Chain, it may be burdens that we deal with. It may be struggles, addictions, different things. You could put your own thing in there that you just need to lay down and don't let it hold you down. And so it's a rocker, and it has a nice little solo at the end. I love playing guitar, and a lot of my singles lately have been, a little bit of pop oriented, but my roots run Georgia deep and Allman Brothers and Black Crowes and Led Zeppelin. But then on the other end, you got things like Genesis and Peter Gabriel and different things. But Ball and Chain is one of those that I just showcase a little bit of my guitar playing and some of my 90s influence as well, with a little bit of vocal. I guess John Schlitt would say just rocking. And
Yeah,
then
it's a
go
great
ahead.
song, man.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and you know what the crazy thing was is that you've let me listen to these singles before they release, and I remember you had sent me Ball and Chain like maybe 3 years ago. So you've had that song done for a while, and I still remember the first time I listened to it. I said, not only is it a rocker, but then when I thought the song was over, it like went into this like mad guitar solo. I'm like, wow. I said, that's impressive. I said, and I love stuff like that. I love good. I'm a guitarist. So I
Yeah.
love hearing that kind of stuff. So that was amazing. Now, had you planned on putting that in the song, or was that just like, I'm just gonna add some like shredding to the end of this song?
Well, it was one of those where it was a rocker, and I've had it in my just. It's been in my heart for a long time, and I just really haven't finished it. And I got together with Billy Smiley, and on that song, it was we just wanted it to just be from the heart, from the soul. And so I'm a guitar player at heart. I started playing at 16 years old, and I just love the feel of an amplifier cranked with my Les Paul. And so we basically did that and just went with it, And it's funny because we were in the studio. My buddy Jonathan Crone he was like, man, just go. And so we just soloed out, and he was using the wah and everything like that, while I was just kind of just in the moment. So that was really a spontaneous solo, just something that we wanted to put in there.
That's pretty cool. Now, I'm glad that it's finally out, man.
Me
I'm glad that
too.
you actually released that song. I love that song. Now, your newest song, April 19th, is called Wasted Time. And this is a great song too. It's got a great message. Take us behind the message of this song.
Well, I just feel like there's so much going on in the world right now, and with the information age, and just people um, not being grounded and not knowing what's happening. And but see, for me, I realized that I got to ground myself in my relationship with God first. And so, everybody comes to that point, and if you haven't yet, I hope that you do, pray that you do come to that point where it's like, I'm tired of wasting time. I'm tired of doing the things that are not fruitful. I'm tired of doing things that aren't good for myself or for others, or most of all for God. And so, there's a lyric that says, um, not a moment I want to miss. I'm giving you the rest of my life. And basically it's like right now, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? Because we're not promised tomorrow, but what are we going to do with the time that's given to us? And so it's no more wasted time. I've been through that. I've done those things, to where, you squander talk about the prodigal son, you squander whatever you've been given. And I don't want to do that anymore. I want to use what God's given me, and I want it to shine a light for others and shine it for him. So no more wasted time, whether it's your family, being the best dad or mom you could be, whether it's being, a good brother or sister, whether it's being, a contributing member to society. It all comes down to our relationship with him and with others. And so I'm not going to waste any more time because it's right now.
Yeah, it's great. Listening to both of these songs this year, Ball and Chain, of course, being able to put down those things that are, dragging you down. And it kind of goes into the new message. For me, hearing these two songs, I've struggled with anxiety for a long time, especially in the last 3 years. Anxiety's
Mm.
like really kind of gotten the best of me sometimes. And hearing these two songs reminded me is like, I got to put that anxiety down, but also I've got to realize that I'm wasting time by not giving God those things that I have no control over. So instead of sitting there worrying about it, I just got to give this to God, stop wasting time, and allow Him to do the work in my life. So these two songs are a great reminder for me personally that I've got to let those things go, and I've got to
Yeah.
keep like stop letting them put me down. And it's been a tough road, man. You know it. I've talked to you for a long time. And a lot of the stuff I've gone through the
Mm.
last 3 years, it's been crazy, but you got to like kind of let go and let God. And I really like the message that these two songs carry and helping to remind you because sometimes, Jason, when you're caught up in those moments, you're not really thinking about that kind of stuff. And it's funny how a song can come along and really help you put things in perspective. Say, you got to let go of this stuff and let God work in your life. So thank you, man. It's
I
these
appreciate that.
songs are awesome.
Well, I've been praying for you, and I know it's been a tough road, and for anybody that may
Appreciate
be
that,
watching
man.
this, there's a lot of things that we go through, and it's, I mean, Jesus says we're going to have trials, we're going to have struggles, but to take heart, He's overcome the world.
Yeah,
And I just keep on thinking, too, that, a lot of times, we have trauma that goes on in our life. We have things that we go through. I mean, I've been sober 18 years, and I really, I had lost all hope at that point. And I was like, man, I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to live again, be a dad again, be anything, worth anything again. But I had to realize that I have to, look at the problem, and I can't stay in the problem. I can't stay in the trouble. I've got to look to the solution, and whatever you focus on, you're going to grow into. And so when I started realizing that I needed to grow into a relationship with God, and work on myself, then I started realizing that, it's how quick I get from the problem to the solution, and we can hold on to it for a long time. And these things are real.
yeah.
We can hold on to them, and it's okay to do that. But at some point, we just have to go. You know what? I got to move forward with the rest of my life, and what am I going to do with the moment I'm given right now? Because, like I said, our kingdom's not here; it's with Him.
Amen. And we all have testimonies and how we came to know the Lord and stuff. And yours is actually uh one of those things where you literally hit rock bottom. And I remember
Mm.
you telling me about, your story of coming to Jesus a long time ago. But for those who have not heard your story, take us back to that period of time when you had lost all hope, and that you had told me, I hit rock bottom, and there was nowhere to go but up for this one.
Well, I grew up in a wonderful family in Georgia, and mom and dad, little sister, my brother who is younger than me. He was born on my birthday, my very first birthday. So we're Irish twins. But
Mm.
growing up in a Georgia family, I mean, we'd sit around the house at my granny's house, and my uncle played dobro, slide. He loved the Allman Brothers. My dad would sing. My other uncle, Chris, he would play piano. And some of my earliest memories are Pony Boy, which is off the Brothers and Sisters album. And it was wild because I remember just looking and listening and hearing, and music just transcend inside of me. I was like, oh my goodness, man, this is awesome. I love this. And that song Pony Boy is a dobro song. It's got some piano and it's just really cool song. And so I remember, and I knew at an early age I loved music, but I didn't start playing guitar till I was about 16 years old. Started playing guitar, and then I also was in sports. Um, I remember um, I was in basketball, but then I stopped growing in height, so I got out of that. Baseball, football. Then I got into speed skating and wrestling, and those were the two that stuck with me all through high school. And I developed this thing kind of called performance-based acceptance because we had some struggles around my house too. And my dad, he was struggling with some alcohol, and great guy and everything like that. But he got to that point where, he relied on that for a while. And I developed what I thought was going to give me more love was when I did good at things. Like if I did good in sports, or if I did good in school, then you get that pat on the back, that attaboy, and you're like, good job, good job. And so I really exceeded or excelled in a lot of those areas. I did good. I remember eighth grade, this came to mind. I was at a wrestling tournament with my dad, and he came to this tournament, and I was new to wrestling, and I ended up I won, and I remember him crying, and it just tears me up because I remember him just so proud of me. And everybody wants your father, your mother proud of you, and we want
Mhm.
God proud of us. So I developed that, and right around that same time I was speed skating too, and ended up going to the Olympic trainer for speed skating. Won the Southern Regional Championship, and man, I was just like, I remember I came home and my dad had this sign that said "Welcome home, champions," and that's all I wanted to be. I wanted to be a champion, man. I was like, yes. And everybody wants to be that in the eyes of their father. And I didn't realize that my dad loved me no matter what. Father in heaven loved me no matter what. So here I am, right around the same time. All of this kind of happened. I heard a guy playing like "Sweet Home Alabama" on the guitar. I said, "Man, whatever that is, I want to do that." So I started playing guitar, and all around the same time, I was just growing into this place. I was trying to find like how in your life you're just trying to find that rock, that root, that anchor to hold on to. And I was seeking, I was comparing my insides to everybody else's outsides and falling short. And so we go like, especially today with Facebook, Instagram, everybody's kind of looking at how many likes you got and everything. And I was with that performance-based acceptance, I was all about trying to find my happiness through others instead of finding my identity and happiness through God. And I went to church at an early age, but started around this time, um, I started getting away from church. And it was mainly when I actually took my first drink. My dad had been struggling with alcohol, and I had a friend of mine. He said, "Hey, Jason, we're going to go and hang out with my brother." And he was an older brother, and we're going to drink some beer. And I didn't think about anything about, what was going on with my dad. All I thought about was, man, I want to be cool. I want to fit in, And so I went with them, and I ended up taking my first drink. I got sick and got in trouble. But I said, in my mind, I thought I'm going to do that again because as soon as I took that drink, it was liquid courage. It was the fear killer. It was the anxiety killer. It was the thing that I was looking for. See, the ultimate fear killer is faith. And I was going away from my faith in God because I wasn't relying on Him. When I found this newfound faith in alcohol, the fear killer, I could control it. And it was like, ooh, my ego's like, yeah, I can control this, and I really equate it to being like a egomaniac with low self-esteem. And it
Mm.
was a balance I could not regulate. I did for a little bit, but right around that same time, I got away from church. So here I am. I'm playing music. I'm in sports, doing good in that. My dad's going through struggles with alcohol. He went into rehab, came back, did good for a while, went into rehab again, and came back, did good for a while. And myself, I was just off to the races. So I was drinking and started doing drugs, and by this time, I had went back to to I won another championship for speed skating, but really in my heart, it was like I want to be a rock star. I want to play music, and I want to be in a band. And I remember telling my grandmother, I said, I want to do this. It's in my heart. She said, well, if you don't follow your dreams, you're always going to wonder why you didn't do what you did. At least try. And so I did. And you know, my dad went to rehab second time, came back, started drinking again. And I was like telling myself, this is not going to happen to me. I'm not going to be like that. So I actually was in a band that traveled around the Southeast, and we played all the covers. We played like stuff like Alice in Chains, Lenny Kravitz, Led Zeppelin, stuff from the 90s too, as well as Pearl Jam and different things, Soundgarden. And we had our own original music as well that we wrote, and we recorded it in our house. And it was three electrical engineers from Virginia Tech that were friends of mine that played drums, guitar, and bass, and I sang. And I remember we did really well for a while, and I partied a little bit more than everybody else, and they ended up kicking me out of the band because I was drinking too much in a rock and roll band. I mean, we played sororities and fraternities, and that's just what you did. But I remember I got hurt so bad. I was like, man, I'm gonna start a couple of like two bands. And right around the same time, my dad, um, I'll never forget this moment. My mama too. I want to talk about her for a second because she was a prayer warrior. All through this, when my dad going through this, and then struggles with me and some of our family members and everything like that. She was always a prayer warrior. And I remember when I stopped going to church when I was 16, 17, I um, I just remember seeing her faith never wavered, in
Mm.
Jesus. There was questions about why is this happening, but she was, my friend, your friend, John Waller has a song called Mama's Prayers. That's what
That's right, yeah.
I love that song. I remember touring with John Waller, and I was playing that song with him, and it would make me cry every single time because Mama's prayers. She was praying for us. So I remember my dad comes in to talk to my brother and I, and he said, "Guys, I'm really sick." And we're like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "No, I'm really sick." He had started drinking again, but he was drinking over a case a day of beer, and he had got to this place where he had lost about 30 pounds, and he had eaten. Well, the alcohol had eaten the inside of his esophagus and his stomach lining out, and he was bleeding internally. And he said, "I got to go to the hospital, guys." And we didn't know if he was going to make it. And my brother and I were like, "Yeah, we've heard of this before," but literally, he went into the intensive care unit, and he ended up almost dying for like 2 weeks. He was hallucinating, going through delirium tremens, which is DTs, coming off of alcohol and everything. And we didn't know if he was going to live or not. But I tell you, that man has always been my biggest supporter, my mom and my dad. And he has been sober over 30 years.
Mm.
He finally came to the end of himself. And at that point, like I said, I wasn't going to let that happen to me. Started two bands, joined a band with some brothers from Georgia, Wilson Brothers, and we had a drummer named Gary, and then we actually another drummer named Tom Conroy that actually ended up joining the band. But we made our own records. They had a studio, and I had another band called Entropy that was a three-piece, and it was a little bit more heavy. Smashing Pumpkins meets Tool meets. I was playing guitar, and just nothing that was like nothing in a box. It was more like exploratory. So that was, we did good with that band, and the other band too. We played a lot of national gigs with a lot of national acts, and I remember after we made a couple of records, we got a producer named um, Brian Holmes, and he was in the band called the Producers. And it going back to the '80s, they were actually one of the first bands on MTV. The Producers were. He was part of that band, and they had a song called "She Sheila" and "What's He Got," and it was just really cool band. And next thing I know, after our second, it was our third record actually. We started shopping around. Next thing you know, record labels started calling us. We started selling out hard rock. We started doing really well, and we got a record deal. And I thought, man, this is it, man. Everything's going to work out. We are going to be rich and famous. Everybody's going to love us. Yeah, yeah, we're gonna make we're gonna make a ton of money, and everything's gonna work out great. And um, we go into Muscle Shoals, Alabama, and remember the first record or the first song that I wanted to learn how to play guitar was "Sweet Home Alabama," and there's a line in there that says "Muscle Shoals has got the Swampers." We went in, and we were in Muscle Shoals with the Four Guys, which is the rhythm section for Muscle Shoals sound, and it was the Swampers, and the Swampers actually started the studio Muscle Shoals Sound. So we're in there with them. We're in there with Johnny Sandlin, who produced Brothers and Sisters, Allman Brothers album, which is got Pony Boy on it. It's got Ramblin' Man. It's got Jessica. I thought I'd made it, man. I was like, woo. I mean, we hadn't even finished the record. I was like, this is it. I am on top of the world. It's in the stars. It's all aligned, and everything's, you know, working out. And then to your question, I by this time I was drinking and doing so many drugs, man, that it stopped doing what I wanted it to do. It stopped taking away the anxiety and the fear. And man, I was so full of fear. I was so full of just anxiety, and I guess I was depressed. I was so afraid that I wasn't going to, the fear of success, the fear of failure, everything. And I was having my first child, which is my son Maddox, and I was so scared I wasn't going to be a good father. I was so just upset on the inside. I was lost and broken, on top of the world by the world means, but I was broken, man. And I was like, man, what am I going to do? And we ended up recording the album, and we got finished with it, and um, here we go. Here's our, label debut, and God had different plans. I remember getting a phone call, and they said, "Well, the label has been bought by another company, and we're going to hold off on putting your album out." And we were just like, "You got to be kidding! This is everything that I've ever worked for, and what am I going to do? With anything?" And it just, I was so broken inside. And the thing is hurt people, broken people break things. And
Yeah.
I was at that place where family broke up, the band broke up. I was breaking. Um, my relationship with people and other things were, man, it was just everything around me was just falling apart. And I have a friend of mine, I came back, and we were gonna, I was gonna be in this band. I can't remember the name of it, but I think it was Von Ray or something like that. And it was Brett Hessler from Creed. Um, he played bass with Creed, and he had a band that he was producing. They were signed to Universal, and I tried out for them. And man, I was just shot out. I was still shot out. They were like, I don't know if we can work with this guy. And came back to Atlanta, and one of my friends, Mill Cannon, who did our first, first video for Ultraphonic. He's a really good friend, and he goes, "Hey man, come and work with me. I want you to actually, I want you to be my first solo artist for a record deal." And I was like, "Man, this is great." He's over here. Next thing you know, we're doing videos for Usher, Confessions. He's doing videos for them, and then he's doing actually the guy that was producing my record, he Colin Leonard is his name, and he's a mastering engineer, and he's gone on to do. I look at the iTunes top 100, and he's, the top 20. He's done 15 of them mastering wise. He's got, like, tons of Grammys and everything like that. But so here I am. I'm like, oh my goodness, we're doing videos for Usher, Whitney Houston, and everything, and I'm finally getting another chance. But the problem is no matter where I went, there I was. And so every time I went back to see my family, it hurt so bad because of what I had done. I couldn't get over that I wasn't a good dad. I couldn't get over it. And I thought that everybody had done this to me, and I couldn't get over that. I couldn't keep the family together. I couldn't get over, like, just the hurt and the pain of not being a good dad and everything. And so I ended up just going deeper into drugs and alcohol. And I'll never forget them, Mill and everybody. He had about 30 people around him and that worked with him. And they set me down and they had an intervention with me, and they said, "Hey, we can't work with you anymore. You're just too much of a hot mess." And I was just crying. I was like, "You got to be kidding me! Here's my buddy and everything." But he said this. He said, "If you ever get yourself together, come back and talk to me, and I'll be here for you. Praying for you and everything." And so that was no longer everything. From then went to a place where I didn't I mean, I had a friend that I lived with in Atlanta, and he took me in, and then I started bartending at a bar. And next thing I know, I'm living out of drug dealers' houses. Next thing I know, I don't have a place to live. Next thing I know, I am staying up for days and just wandering like a vagabond, like just nowhere to go. And I just got to a place where I was so broken. And I think what happened is I finally, and I know this is what happened, I reached the end of me. And that's where I needed to be. Because I remember it was 2005, and I got kicked out of a drug dealer's house. And I was homeless, and I had nowhere to go. And it was raining outside. It was about 3 in the morning. And I realized, that God didn't do this to me, that I did it to myself. And I cried out to him. I said, "God, whoever you are, whatever you are, I need help. I need help. Please, please help me." I thought I was dead. I was dead. I'd already OD'd. I'd already been sleeping, God knows where, everywhere, in the places where you just never want to be. And I cried out, and I'll never forget. I remember a friend came and got me, and I went home to my parents. And I went into a rehab, a Christ-based rehab. And at that point, my first meeting was actually December 30th, 2005. My first meeting was December 31st. So it was New Year's Eve. My first meeting, I couldn't make it on New Year's Eve. I was completely done and broken. I never thought in a million years that I would be at this place. But I finally got to this place where I said, "Okay, God, whoever you are, whatever you are, please help me." And from that point on, I went into the rehab. I went into Christ-based recovery center, and about 6 months in, I started realizing, oh my goodness, God, you saved me. And I remember praying, and we were at a men's conference, and I said, "God, I just want to give my life to you. Jesus, I want to give my life to you because I am nothing by myself, and I never will be." And I just wrote a song that came out called "I Used to Be," and it was, um, I finally reached the end of me, and I'm no longer who I used to be. And I realized that at that moment. And I just started, my favorite verse is Matthew 6:33, "Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things will be added." And I also love the fact that he says, "The old is gone and the new is here." And he said, "I forgive you of your sins. And no matter what you've done, I will make you brand new." And so I accepted him in my heart, and I started moving in that direction. His word is a lamp to my feet. I can go camping with a lantern and I can see about 10 feet in front of me. That's about it. And so his word is a lamp to my feet. And started following him. I stayed into Christ-based recovery for about a year. I came back. And the amazing thing is, I started getting a relationship with my son. Started getting a relationship first and foremost with God because I put him first. I started getting a relationship with my son, myself, with my family. I started being able to make amends. I started, working the 12 steps in a way where the biblical 12 steps where I got right with God, myself, and with others. And I started realizing that all of these things that had happened were 99% my fault. And if they weren't my fault, it's how long I held on to them.
Mm.
And so I started working in the direction of just playing music. I joined a church, got a relationship with my family. Um, I met my wife in church, and I remember seeing my son every weekend. And his mom and I got a relationship that was like we were both on the same page. We were wanting God in our life and seeking Him. And so it's amazing because that young man is 23 years old right now, and he is a videographer for some of the biggest Christian music acts. He's worked with Dolly Parton, he's worked with Zach Williams, he's worked with Ann Wilson, Matthew West. I mean, the list goes on, and it's amazing how God is all over his life. And same with my family. I have three boys, and my beautiful wife, I tell people she loves Jesus way more than she loves me. And that, I think, believe that's the way it should be. She does. And so we have three boys, my beautiful wife, and I played music for like 5 years. Okay. Just to kind of go back to this. Um, I met a guy in recovery. He said, look, he played with Steve Winwood. He said, man, Jason, you concentrate on yourself first. Concentrate on getting better first, and everything else will work out. He said, I didn't write a song for 3 years. So stayed up in Athens with my buddy, my sponsor, Ed, and stayed up there for a little while. Came back, got into church, and started leading worship, got into Celebrate Recovery and Hey Family, Forever Family. And then I remember in 5 years being sober, one of my friends I used to party with got his life together, and he said, hey, we need a singer for a band I'm in. It's a couple of guys from Black Label Society, Ozzy Osbourne's band, and well, not Ozzy Osbourne's band, but
Like, well,
Zach Wild. Yeah, Zach
yeah.
Wild. So, Zach Wild's a shredder.
Oh
So
yeah.
the other guitar player, Nick, and I was like, man, okay. So I got in that band and auditioned and got in that band. But I still felt like, man, God pulling me in a direction to make music for Him and to use the gifts that we've been given for Him. And I believe that that's our ultimate purpose. So started playing music and writing music for Him. 2014, recorded my first record with Jason Fowler. 2016 with Billy Smiley, and then ended up getting in a band with him and John Schlitt from Petra. And we started the Union of Sinners and Saints. It's funny because this whole time I've been hanging out with some of the guys that I introduced you to from Collective Soul, and Will Turpin, and and all
Thank you,
those.
by the way.
Oh yeah, I
That's,
mean,
I mean, I told you the first interview. I remember you telling me that you know the guys from Collective Soul. I'm like, dude, hook me up. I said I've been a Collective since I was 14, and dude, it's been a lot of fun being able to just go and see them when they're here in Tampa and hang out with them after the show. And I told you last year, I finally got to meet Ed Roland because
nice.
he normally darted towards the bus after the thing, but that was cool.
Yeah, he's cool. I played with Will and wrote a couple of like 4 or 5 songs with him, and played on the Rock Boat with Live and Tonic and Collective Soul, and then got up there with all of them and played some Led Zeppelin. I got to sing some Led Zeppelin. It was pretty monumental. It's really cool. It's funny how you see your friends and the people that you hang out with. They're on TV and they're playing, and it puts things at arm's length and everything. And so it's really cool to be able to God put me in a place to be able to play with some of these guys, and I'm just grateful for it. The music has been one thing that has always been a part of me, and I believe it's a great tool that God gave us, and we can worship through it. We can bring others to him through it. We can, it's something that my friend, Mama Jan Smith says. She says music is one of the only things in the world that can enter inside of your mind, body, soul, and spirit, change the way you feel without you, you know, you being aware of it. And it could just overwhelm you. And so I've been writing a lot of songs here um, recently too. And I'm excited.
Music can have a, it's amazing how much of an impact music can have on you. Because I remember growing up, back in the 80s, they call it's funny because they call a lot of the late 70s stuff and early 80s stuff, they call it classic rock now. But I remember listening to
The
stuff in,
90s, they call it classic rock.
yeah, I remember hearing it like when it was brand new on the radio.
Yeah.
And, it's amazing the impact that music can have. And, Georgia is a hotbed of talented musicians. I mean, you've got a chance to play with them. You know a lot of them, both on the mainstream and Christian side, like Collective Soul, Third Day, all of them. And, I can credit the guys from Collective Soul, their 95 self-titled record, as a record that really helped me through one of the most traumatic periods in my life when I was a kid. Because I grew up with an abusive father, exactly opposite of your dad. And you going back, you mentioned that, you were a lot of the time you were just, wanting to get your dad's approval. I mean, you come from a family of musicians. You started to pick up the guitar when you were 16. I picked up the guitar when I was 17, and all you wanted was the approval. You wanted those
Yeah.
words. And I read a book after I got saved called The Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman. And when I'm sitting there
Great
trying to
book.
figure out what my love was, I kept coming back to words of affirmation. And that's kind of been my whole thing, my whole life is that, with my dad, especially having that tumultuous, abusive relationship with my dad, I always wanted my dad's approval, yet I never got it when I was a kid. And it crushed me. And I think that's why I made a lot of, I'm not saying that my dad didn't make the choices for me. I made the bad choices myself, but I think that that had a lot to do with a lot of the choices that I made. Now, thankfully, I didn't get into drugs. I didn't get into alcohol because my dad was both a drug addict and an alcoholic. And I was smart enough to realize after seeing what those things did to him, realizing myself at a young age as a teenager, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be like my dad. My dad was my dad didn't remember half of what he did because he was either trash drunk or high or both. And it wasn't until after I got saved, Jason, I had a conversation. This was kind of like the coming of Jesus moment with my dad when I was about 26, about 3 years after I got saved. So it would have been like 2006 or something like that. My dad calls me up one day, and I could count in my hand. I can count on both hands the times that my dad told me he loved me my entire childhood. He called me up. He's like, Jay, he's like, I'm surprised that you still talk to me or want to have anything to do with me. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I was horrible to you as a kid. He's like, I know that now. He's like, I was absolutely horrible. And I'm surprised you want to have anything to do with me. And I told him, and I remember this. I remember this conversation. I had forgiven my dad before that because the Bible says we're supposed to forgive even if the other person doesn't deserve that forgiveness. I told my dad, I'm like, you're my dad. I said, I forgave you a long time ago. And I said, look at it this way. I said, if I can't forgive you for the things that you've done to me, I said, how can I expect God to forgive me of the things that I've done to other people? I said, so I forgave you a long time ago. And the line just got silent. I thought it got disconnected. And he sounded choked up. He's like, I never thought I would ever hear you say that to me. And I said, Dad, I said, you're the only dad I've got. I said, I've got a heavenly father. I said, but you're my dad here. And I said, you always have been and you always will be. And he told me on that phone call, he said, man, I appreciate that. He's like, Jay, I love you. Man, dude, it was bittersweet because it's
Mm.
like the thing that I so desperately wanted to hear my dad say when I was a kid, he said on that phone call. And it meant everything to me. And My dad still continued to, he was type 2 diabetic, but did not take care of himself.
Mm.
He died in 2018 at 58, and just didn't take care of himself. But I remember that conversation, man, and it's just I think back to those times. I'm like, I'm so my dad told me, he's like, I'm thankful you didn't take the road I did. He's like, Jay, I'm really proud of you and everything you've done. He's like, you're a great father. You're a great husband. He's like, you are everything that I wasn't. And man, I tell you what, Jason, coming from him and the relationship we had when I was a kid, dude, that meant everything to me and was kind of a culmination. It was everything I wanted to hear from my dad. So
Absolutely, man.
I get that, and I'm glad I didn't have to go through all of that and hit rock bottom. But I tell you what, I went through a lot, and Jesus came to me as I was, and I accepted him in 2003 when I was 22. And man, it's been a great ride since. It hasn't been perfect, but I tell you what, that faith in Christ is what got me through the last 3 years, man. Because I tell
You
you what,
know,
if I didn't have that faith when I lost my first wife, Shannon, in 2020, dude, I don't know if I would have made it through that.
it's
God is good.
amazing. And God is good, and I'm so sorry. I've been praying for you ever since then, and when she was in the
Appreciate that.
hospital, and I believe we're going to see, and you're going to see her again. I believe that. I mean, that's the hope that Jesus gives us. And there's people out there that are hopeless too, man. They don't know. They feel like, man, what is this all for? And I don't have any hope. And the thing is all nobody has to be perfect in their belief. They just have to just believe, hey man, this might work, and maybe look at somebody else and say, hey, this is working in their life, maybe this will work. And see, Jesus meets us where we are, no matter what we've been through. I don't care how broken, how hurt, I don't care what you've done, I don't care who you hurt, I don't care who's hurt you. What happens is when you accept Jesus, things start to change.
Amen.
And things start to change in your life in a way that you start to see it, even if nothing changed, you start to change from the inside out. Hillsong has a song. It's one of the first songs that I started playing when I was first, um, like, started playing in church, and it went in through me and just changed the way that I felt. It was like, oh my goodness, it's called From the Inside Out, and it's the thing is when He meets us where we are, there's a process. I mean, He met the woman at the well and everything. But when I say this is a process, it's a process. It's not in our gifts. It's a submission. And we just say, hey, okay, God, whatever you want, I believe in you, and forgive me my sins, and let's just walk in that direction. And then this process of sanctification is just, it's a daily thing. We're humans and we're going to mess up, and we all have messed up. We all have hurts. We all have hangups. I love Celebrate Recovery because it's basically a way for us to join with other believers and other people, just praising His name, but also going through the steps that He told us, through the Beatitudes of how to love God, how to love others, and how to walk through life. I'm grateful for you, man, and I know that you went through a hard time, and He gave us each other, during these times. And I know that our riches and our treasures aren't here; they're in heaven. And
Well, man, I appreciate that, and it means more to me than you'll ever know. Having friends, that reach out on a regular basis, just letting me know that they were praying for me was awesome. And it gets to our one of our last questions, legacy. Uh, you're talking about your son Maddox, and just I look at the stuff that he's doing, like him and I are friends on Facebook, and I see the stuff that he's doing, like, wow. Every time I see a picture of a project that he's working on, I'm like, man, his
I
dad
know.
must be proud of him.
I am so proud, that see this 4-year-old kid who, when I got sober, I was like, I'm never, I'm not a good dad. I'm never going to be a good dad. I remember like seeing him every weekend, and what we did, we'd go to, I was like, we're going to go to church. I met a friend at church, and he's the youth director and youth leader, and he would go there. We would go, and just it was always about like, how can I be a good dad from now on, and how can I put him around other believers. And he has a strong faith in God, and it's amazing what God's doing in his life. It's so funny because we just did something that I'm super excited about, and it's amazing because in 2020 I started writing these songs because I went up to Nashville with one of my friends, Jonathan Crone. I was singing on a project that he has, and he plays in the Union of Sinners and Saints as well. But I was going up there to sing some songs. I was listening to all of these songs, from the Allman Brothers to Black Crowes to Led Zeppelin to Genesis to Fleetwood Mac, and I was like, oh my goodness, man, I grew up on this. This just makes me feel like, wow, this is alive, and as far as just love rock and roll. And so I came back and I started writing songs, started recording songs, and producing songs myself. I mean, it was just me from the ground floor up. And these were heart projects of that sound anywhere from my 90s influences to the 80s influences to the 70s influences to today and the worship music. But it's rock and roll based. And it's I've got 5 songs. Wasted Time, coming out April 19th, is going to be the second track. And I worked with my son. He loves one of the songs so much, and he knew it was straight from the heart. And he's like, I want to do a video for you. And so we just got through working on a video, and I'm just blown away. There's nothing that can ever explain the feeling it is for a dad to be lost, broken, not be a good dad, to be redeemed by Christ, and then to see your son doing what he loves, using the God-given talents that he's been given to do great things, but then to pour into to me. Oh my goodness, it's beyond anything. And as you can tell, I can't keep it together. But
Mm.
for all of that being said, I think that God gave us all gifts, and they're all different. They're all parts of the body. He wants us to use them for Him. And so for me, I'm just going to make music. I'm not making it for radio. I'm not making it for anything. I want to make music from the heart. On this new record, it's called Redwater Revival, is what I'm going to call it. And it's 5 tunes, and I hope to release it here this next year. This year in fall, and it'll be the follow up to this single. But I'm super excited about it, and I cannot wait for you to hear it. I cannot wait for people to hear it. So, for me, to anybody out there, use what God's given you, use it for His glory and to help others. And I'm telling you, not only will it shine, but you'll see people coming to you and saying, hey, man, thanks for sharing that. Because when it's raw and real from the heart, like your Kingdom Builder show and everything, I mean, what a great tool that God has given you the ability to do, to be able to talk about like struggles, to talk about redemption, to talk about grace, to talk about love, and to help each other out. So I appreciate you, man. But I'm super excited about that. About to play a show with the Union of Sinners and Saints with John Schlitt. I know they're doing the Petra 50-year thing right now, but playing a show with him, playing the Unity Festival in Michigan coming up in August 8th, and got some shows here and there in between. I'm
We
super
gotta bring you
excited.
into Florida. We gotta bring you guys to Florida because I'm seeing Petra here in a couple days, and I want to see Union of Sinners and Saints because I've talked to Billy, talked to John, talked to you. Love to see you guys
Well,
play
let's
here in
let's just
Florida
make it
because you
happen.
you and
Cause
I
see,
you
we
and I
play.
are Florida. You're Georgia. You're a Georgia boy, but you're kind of a Florida boy now because we both live in Florida. So I mean,
Yeah,
we got to.
I love it. Yeah, I think so. Let's make it happen, man.
Yeah. Well,
We'll do
so
it.
we're talking about legacy and legacy of parents, and I know that that's really important to you. It's really important to me. But it's amazing how God works when you see not only the work that He's done in your life, but to see the work that He's done in your children's life because of your faithfulness. And that's amazing. And I mean, that's for me, that's cool to see God working in my kids. And
Absolutely. I see that with you too. You're such a good father, and I see
I
the way
I
that
I
you
try.
are with them. Yeah.
Well, I talked to John Waller recently, and John was the same way because John's kids have followed the same path in the music. And
I had 10 kids.
I'm like, does that make you proud? I said, because my kids don't want anything to do with making music. They just like listening to music. They have no interest
Yeah.
in guitar, singing, any of that.
That could change overnight,
us this morning,
You
man.
too, bro.
It's about time. And I pray that the Lord continues to use you and your music to be able to reach people for Jesus and to really, most importantly, show them that there's hope that's found only in Him. So I appreciate you, man. I appreciate your music and I appreciate your prayers over the last several years, man. It has not gone unnoticed. So, man, God bless you.
Well, God bless you too, Jay. You're a wonderful friend and brother. Grateful to know you and grateful to do life with you, bro.
Amen.